welcome. We hope this won't be your last time. It's a great community, a very powerful and proud community. So try to make this one of your stops. There's also some great things to see here, including the newly opened Go-Go Museum that is down the street from here. It talks about the music and the history of Go-Go to this city and to this neighborhood in particular. Also, there's the Anacostia Community Museum, which is about half a mile away from here. Great little museum, part of the Smithsonian, well, used to be, part of the Smithsonian group of museums. So if you are so inclined, that's a great spot also to stop in here. Of course, some really good restaurants and places to go, like Busboys and Poets and other places. So we hope you make it here. Thank you. So these are interesting times for sure. This has definitely been a tale of two universes. These are the worst of times I think we're seeing, but they're also some of the best of times. Despite all the horrors that are happening all around us, we're seeing new dialectics of liberation taking shape. We're seeing people connecting with other people that they otherwise would never connect with. We're seeing coalitions take shape. We're seeing people standing up against the ongoing assault on democracy that's taking place in this country and throughout the world. It is no accident that we're having this condition right now. And anyone who has been told that it's your fault because you were speaking up against genocide, please push back on that, because it is not your fault. It is the fault of the Democrats who allowed this kind of takeover of our country take place right now. It is definitely because of allowing a genocide to take shape, because of allowing the closing in on students, allowing the police to take over our campuses, allowing presidents of major universities stand up and be humiliated in Congress. That is the reason why we are here today. They opened up the door and paved the way for this kind of assault on everything else. Because, you know, someone like Donald Trump, these robber barons of modern time, they looked around, they said, hey, if they can get away with genocide, we can get away with anything. So really, that's what we're seeing right now, and we have to keep pushing back. And you know, sometimes things have to get worse before they get better, sadly enough. But we are all, I think, pushing in the right direction. We all want to see an end to this horror that's taking place, not only in Palestine, but across the world, and certainly here in our own backyard. So thank you for showing up, because that's half the battle. And thank you for being part of coalitions that I'm sure all of you are working on. So thank you for being here. I always think these types of gatherings are really important, because sometimes, you know, when you're sitting behind a computer and you're looking at these, you know, emails or whatever you happen to be glancing at, you can feel very isolated and very much alone. And sometimes it requires the human touch, the human warmth, the eyeballs looking at one another to be able to say, I'm not alone. So I assure you, you're not alone. I assure you there's thousands, if not millions of people all around that have been standing up to this. So you're not alone for sure. And I hope you all come out on April the 5th for hopefully one of the largest demonstrations that we'll have. But things don't start and don't end at demonstrations. These people have been planning this for a very long time. A demonstration is not going to put an end to this. But what does work is actually constant and diligent work. Democracy is not for the faint at heart. Democracy is not something that you do at the poll once every 4 years and walk away hoping things will get better, because the other side is constantly working on this. I can assure you that Trump's re-entry into the presidency did not happen because he woke up in the morning the day after the election and said, oops, I'm president, let's make all these things happen. These are things that have been in place. Project 2025, I'm sure many of you have heard of it, has been in place for almost a decade. And that is the work that needs to happen to counteract this type of assault on our humanity, on our laws, on our connection to the rest of the earth. So many things are happening. This morning, I had a friend of mine calling hysterically. She works at the NIH, and she said, today, the NIH, every director at the NIH has been fired, every single one. And she said many of the lower level, workers at the NIH found out today when they came to the office and could not enter because their cards didn't work. That's how they're dealing with this. And they continue to do this, and the more they do it and people are silent, the more they'll continue doing it. So thank you for not being silent. And speaking of not being silent, boy, oh boy, we hit the jackpot here. We hit the jackpot here. Corey and Rashida in the house. That's what I'm talking about. Two of my favorite human beings on earth. They are the two that are making, among others, that are making the earth more livable. So I thank you for being here among us. And I'm going to turn this over to you in a moment. I wanted to introduce the Reverend first and then be able to turn it over to you. I think we're going to have a conversation with him, I think, on stage. Is that how it's going to work? Oh, they don't know. They're going to do whatever. Yes, that's what you're going to do. So we have of course Cori Bush, who's a Congresswoman Cori Bush, who was very, very sadly defeated during the last election, and we lost. Not only she lost the election, but we lost a lot. We as a community lost a lot. But not to be bowed. She is back, and she is in full force, and she is doing it, and she's speaking up. And if you haven't listened to her podcast with Jamal Bauman, it's Bauman and Bush, and it is an incredible podcast. I highly recommend it. It's on Zeteo, so look it up. You'll get really energized and excited. And their first episode was so exciting because it was talking about like the inner workings of Congress. Yuck. All the stuff that happens behind the scenes. Talk about sausage making. Okay, it's really, really deep and insightful and exciting. And I think it gives us a little bit of ammunition to be able to counteract the other side, because that's how they do it. They know everything that's happening, and they continue to push, and we tend to stand aside. We go out and demonstrate and don't really turn those demonstrations into power. So we need to rethink. Once you go to the demonstration, don't go to brunch afterwards, okay? Go and do something. Do something important. Call your congressman. Write a letter. Write an op-ed. Call the newspapers. Tell them that they're not writing enough about what's happening. Right now, people are getting killed every single day in Gaza, in the West Bank, and yet we see a dearth of information coming out. It's really pretty horrific. I want to say a very special thank you to Cori Bush. Of course, she's from Missouri, and I hope that she runs again, because we will have her back. And her husband Courtney, of course, thank you so much for being here and taking care of her for us. And we also have, of course, Rashida Tlaib. Rashida is an incredible, of course, force of nature. She is in Congress, and we are lucky to have her there. She is, of course, from Detroit, Michigan. Okay, Detroit gets applause. That's great. And she is speaking all the time, speaking truth to power. She's one of those most principled congresspeople that I know, certainly, and I'm so fortunate to call her a friend. So thank you for being here. I'm going to let you going to introduce? Okay, great. So Churches for Middle East Peace is sponsoring this event, so we thank them for that, and I'll have them introduce Dr. Munther Isaac. Please come on up. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andy. When we knew that Reverend Dr. Isaac was coming to DC, he said, give Andy a call. He said he's a dear friend, and we knew that this was a place where we wanted his book, Christ in the Rubble, to be launched. And so thank you all for coming here tonight for that purpose. But the main purpose is to end the genocide in Gaza and to call for a comprehensive and permanent ceasefire, an end to the oppression of the Palestinian people. As Nelson Mandela said, until Palestinians are free, none of us are free. So we're so grateful you're here tonight. My name's Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. I'm the Executive Director of Churches for Middle East Peace. We're so grateful to Andy. I don't know where he went. There you are. Thank you so much for the space. We're so, so grateful. And as you said, I mean, we have people who have been heroes for this movement long before October 7th. And so we're going to start with words from the Honorable Rashida Tlaib. I remember wear your thobe, you know, and tweet your thobe. I wore mine, you know, and the first Palestinian, woman elected to Congress. She has been a stalwart advocate for Palestinian human rights and for the rights of all. I'm Irish American, and I thought I had, my father was one of 13 brothers and sisters. She's the oldest of 14. Did you know that? I was going to try to tell you something that you didn't know about her. And none of you are impressed. I think that's very impressive. Like, she's amazing. She's the oldest of 14. Like, that's more impressive than all the other things she's done. I'm the oldest of 4. I can barely manage. But, she's beloved, certainly. And, many of us know her for the work that she's done in Michigan. But she's fought many, many fights on behalf of the Palestinian people courageously. And so we wanted her to give opening remarks before we hear from Reverend Dr. Isaac, and then we'll have the opportunity to hear a response from the Honorable Cori Bush. So let's welcome the Honorable Rashida Tlaib.
Thank you all so much. Thank you. I really appreciate it. Salams to all of you. Thank you so much for coming. It's incredible. I don't know how you all don't see it, but every time I see my incredible sister in service and this fight, Cori Bush, I just feel rejuvenated and a lot more confident. It's been, and even though there's, some allies, her unwavering allyship was just so unapologetic and just no fear. And it's so felt. Even last week, we had some tough votes, and I know what was missing is having her next to me while everybody, sneered at me on the House floor. But I can't thank her enough for continuing this movement. What I love is, growing up in the most beautiful, blackest city in the country, the city of Detroit, the allyship around the issue of oppression everywhere, and including Palestine. She is now leading a way to bring so many folks that are working on movement for Black lives, a movement to fight against oppression and racism towards our Black neighbors, and connecting it to the movement to liberate and free Palestine. So thank you so much to our amazing Congresswoman Cori Bush. Of course, thank you to Reverend Cannon, and thank you to Andy for always welcoming us to this amazing space. I heard about him before I ever met you. Because I think you didn't really care about me being a state rep until I ran for Congress, but that's okay. I came in and you're like, okay, this is something important, but I really do appreciate, creating the spaces to welcome us and welcome this movement. As you know, even when I was doing the NECBA event on campus, everybody's like, let's go to bus. I said, no, we're going to have it on campus. And Andy Shalal will understand if we don't have another Palestine human rights rally at one of his businesses, it's better to be on the Hill. And alhamdulillah, it was standing room only, and it was an incredible event. So thank you, Andy, for always having our back. We appreciate it. Of course, I am so thrilled. Is it Reverend Dr. Munther? Hi. I didn't know about the doctor part. That's nice. But I've been following you for a long time and sharing your posts. I think I paid attention to you. I don't know if you were, because when you're in Palestine and you're Palestinian, honestly, people's faith and background, it's not, you're just Palestinian, right? And, I knew the work that he was doing, of course, but when he did this incredible thing of the Christ in the Rubble, it was so moving, it brought tears to me. and, you know, the Christmas message of stopping this genocide now. It took a lot of courage, him right in the middle of Palestine and illegal occupied territories, to say that message unapologetically was incredible. And he reached so many thousands of people with that message immediately. And again, using the power of faith to bringing people towards understanding the shared humanity we have and saving lives no matter faith or ethnicity. So thank you, Reverend Dr. Munther. I really appreciate you. You know, one of the things, I mean, we're now 15 months later from this incredible movement or the message that Reverend Dr. Munther had. And, you know, this last just week, what we've seen of war crimes continuing, of, you know, doctors coming out, my good friend Tanya, who's part of Doctors Against Genocide, saying, you know, that she spent the day on Eid cutting children's, you know, Eid clothes off of their bodies, dead children bodies. The fact that many of my community members in my district, you know, I have a huge, beautiful Lebanese community who's just devastated by the targeting in Beirut of the residential building. You know, I can go on in regards to what we're seeing come out of Gaza and the starvation that continues to happen and the violence. But we do have an opportunity now, and I need this moment to tell you all, a lot of people don't know about the joint resolution of disapproval right now. Many, maybe people you in this room do, but work your backyards. This is an opportunity. And let me tell you, when we had 18 senators join us, and right now in the House, I think, right, Joseph, we have like 16 co-sponsors of the House version right now. That is showing there is no ironclad support for genocide. There's no ironclad support of using starvation as a weapon of war. You know, we don't have it. So we need to continue to push. Again, I think Bernie Sanders is doing what he can, and he's going to force this vote on the Senate floor. And this is an opportunity to not only get 18, but more, again, senators to support saying not one more bomb, no more on our dime will we send it. And do it in a way where I do it. I said, wow, they got $8.8 billion to send weapons to kill more children, but we don't got clean water in our communities. We don't got childcare in our communities. We sitting there talking about cutting Medicare and Medicaid and all this stuff, but wow, we have money to continue to support war crimes and the targeting of these beautiful lives that continue, again, to be devastated. I can't even imagine, and all of us can't, and as we watch it live, imagine what the generational trauma and infliction that we've caused. And I say we because it is our country that is the primary investor. And we have to share that responsibility and continue to push back and continue to speak that truth. But, you know, it is hard to watch it done in such a bipartisan way. And it's both Democrats and Republicans standing. So it doesn't surprise me that the abduction of students started with those that are fighting for Palestine to try to humanize, some of them just writing op-eds saying save lives. All of that to say is it's not surprising that there's so little resistance, and there is, but not the kind of resistance you would get, because we know it's not just Mahmoud Khalil and Rasmiya and everybody else. I mean, their rights are our rights, but there's so many more stories that we don't even know about that haven't gone public about people that are being targeted, again, for their constitutional rights and their free speech. And so it is an opportunity also to share with folks, because one thing in my district, they don't have to know what happened in 1948 to know, what are you doing abducting in plain clothes a person off the street, a student, because you disagree with them politically? Because guess what? Tomorrow it will be around issues around unitization of Amazon. It will be around pushing back against fossil fuel industry. They're starting with Palestine, but it will be other issues that are important to our communities. Watch them. This is just the testing ground right now and them targeting those folks. So again, we cannot allow them to sacrifice, again, our freedom of speech and speaking out about these issues and, you know, allow this to continue to happen. You know, I always, and Andy's heard me say this, I came in here for this girl from Southwest Detroit, the eldest of 14, mashallah. Okay, mashallah. Okay. I mean, being the eldest of 14 probably best prepared me for public office than anything. Plus, you know, they keep trying to get rid of us Palestinians, but we have more babies. A lot more. Continue. Yalla, ya Andy. Anyways, I can tell you that me being there is like a walking bill. My mere existence in this institution has really shook things up. I mean, just me being in the room, they sometimes hesitate in what they're going to say because I'm not going to allow them to dehumanize and use racist tropes about the Palestinian people. And it's so incredible to watch, again, this agitation that continues to happen just because I'm there. And, you know, first time I wore a keffiyeh, they went nuts. The first time I said, you know, apartheid, they went, I said, well, it's not my words, it's the Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, it's B'Tselem, it's all these folks that are using those words. This is what, again, we continue to use me and Corey and so many others to push back against this narrative, and again, allowing to normalize these racist tropes. And I say racist tropes because they're real and they're sticking to people. Because today, don't get mad, because I said to people, like, imagine they weren't Palestinian. Maybe you would care about those children. Because that's the reality of the racism that we have in our country when they think of Palestinians. They think that we are people that deserve to die, that we're less human. And again, this sounds exactly what many of our black neighbors go through in the United States of America, and why the work that Cori Bush is doing is so incredibly important. As we continue to bring faith in folks together, in movements together, know this, that more Americans are with us now than ever. And I want you to have, in this time of darkness, to have that light, to understand that I've never been, maybe it's because I'm a congresswoman, I don't know, maybe you guys have seen it. People know who Palestinians are now. They know about what's going on in Palestine. That's, as growing up in the United States, people are like, oh, you're from Pakistan? No, and so, but now they're like, wait, they're cutting your water off? They're doing, what do you mean there's 2 license plate colors? What do you mean there's 2 lines to checkpoints? And so they're starting to understand, again, what has been enabled by the fact that we haven't held the Israeli government accountable for violating international law and supporting, again, violating human rights provisions and things that are in place, again, to prevent this kind of oppression. So more Americans are with us. I'll leave you with this, a little girl, in Sacramento, California, she came up to me, and one of the things, when I ran, I didn't run to be first of anything. I really didn't. I didn't even know I was going to be the first, they said Palestinian American woman. I was like, really? There was another one before me? I really didn't know, because I knew there was Arab Americans that were elected before me, that maybe they weren't outwardly Arab. I don't know. I just know that I didn't run to be the first of anything. If anything, I ran to take on the fossil fuel industry, the corruption. You guys know I've been fighting for water as a human right, and it's so painful to watch so many of my residents get their water shut off, and the fact that they're paying for dirty water with 11 different contaminants in, and just now the water department increased their rate by 5.9% during this time of struggle is so shameful. But this little 8-year-old, she's older now, she came up to me and she's really excited to meet me. And she said, I said to her, oh, you got a little blazer, that's so cute, wow, that's so, and she goes, I'm trying to be like you. I said, girl, forget about running for Congress. You should run for President of the United States. She goes, uh-huh. And I say this to you all because sometimes our existence and the way we are unapologetically is showing the next generation you can do this. You can be this and not have to sell out and sell your soul out to support this kind of genocide and war crime and try to change who you are. We can be who we are and say enough is enough and not on our watch, and inspire, again, more people, because I always say we're seeds. They try to get rid of one of us, and there's so many more behind us. So, alhamdulillah. So I just thank you all so much, and thank again for those that organize this as you all come together. The trips that this organization organizes, I hear from my colleagues, Republican and Democrats, say how life-changing it is. Now, do they come back more courageously? Maybe not, but they understand more. And we got to just get them over the hump to actually do something about it. So thank you so much for the organization for doing an incredible job, again, bringing some of my colleagues and showing them firsthand. Thank you all so much. I really appreciate you. Andy, you're a doll. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so good to be in the space with you, and just to be able to touch you. I feel like I've been able to touch my ancestors. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for those words. Well, you all came here tonight to hear from Reverend Dr. Munther Isaac. And when Munther came last November, he came last November with Jack, Sarah, from Bethlehem Bible College. And we went to the former administration to call for a ceasefire. And they said to us that we were foolish for doing so. They said that that was naive, and I can remember saying we couldn't imagine that what was happening would still be going on by Easter of 2024. And today it's more than 540 days. 540 days of atrocities, ethnic cleansing, and genocide. And here we are. I wanted to read some words that Munther wrote. This is from Sojourners as a bit of an introduction. I think you all know who he is. Reverend Dr. Munther Isaac. He's the pastor of the Christmas Lutheran Church in Bethlehem, the founder of the Christ in the Checkpoint Conference. We're here because of his book. He gave a sermon after that visit in November at Christmas time called Christ in the Rubble. And he wrote these words to Sojourners. He said, "Beloved, in these difficult times, let us comfort ourselves with God's presence amid pain, even amid death, for Jesus is no stranger to pain, arrest, torture, and death. He walks with us in our pain. God is under the rubble in Gaza. He is with the frightened and the refugees. He's in the operating room. This is our consolation. He walks with us through the valley of the shadow of death." If we want to pray, my prayer is that those who are suffering will feel this healing and comforting presence. And we have another comfort, which is the resurrection. In our brokenness, pain, and death, let us repeat the gospel of the resurrection. Christ is risen. He becomes the first fruits of those who have fallen asleep. And when I saw the pictures, he's speaking of the St. Porphyrius Church. When I saw the pictures of these saints in the white bags in front of the church during their funeral, Christ's call came to mind. "Come, you who are blessed of my Father, inherit the kingdom prepared for you from the foundations of the world." From Matthew chapter 25. One of the things we've been talking about at Churches for Middle East Peace is that the very witness of the gospel of Christ is at stake. And if Christ is not present in the most broken places of the world, what kind of good news is that? And so I'm grateful to you, Munther, for speaking the truth of the gospel, for calling us to account. And we're committed to standing alongside of you until this genocide is brought to an end. So let's welcome Munther.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, shall I sit? Okay. Thank you and good evening. It's really hard to follow after all of this, and I really hate it when I go on stage already feeling emotional. I'll do my best. What an honor to be here. Thank you for everyone who put this together. Andy, this is the second time I come, so I guess the first time went well. Thanks for having me back here. And to our Muslim friends, siblings, happy Eid. We insist to say it. I know it's hard. I think of the images I've seen 3-4 days ago of the people in Gaza insisting on celebrating despite everything. Because we're all about life. We want to live. And yes, you mentioned, Rashida, what happened to the children who were in hospital. But the fact that they insisted on wearing Eid clothes, you know, and celebrate and take pictures and show the whole world that they are celebrating, knowing that they could be killed any moment, just shows what kind of resilience, sumud, Palestinian people have, how much we love life. So thank you again, and I wish I was here in different circumstances. It's really hard to believe that we're still calling for not just a ceasefire, but for the world to recognize our humanity. It really feels hard. And it really feels strange to go to universities and I've been to many, and having to kind of explain why the word genocide is in the title of my book. And they ask me, what do you mean by genocide? How do you understand it? It doesn't matter how I understand it. I did not create the definition. The international community did. In fact, this is, you know, we came with these definitions and rules and human rights and international law precisely so that never again becomes never again. And the problem is that for years, the Western world lectured us, whether in Palestine or in other places, on the importance of the international law and human rights. And sometimes I think we are to blame for allowing them to sit on the top of the moral hierarchy as if they know better than everyone else, and to lecture us on human rights. And so when we follow them with the definition that they created and taught us, all of a sudden, we are the ones to blame. Why are you calling it a genocide? And I actually made a point when speaking in university, and it took between 2 to 3 minutes to list the number of institutes, organizations, experts, professors who described the acts of Israel in Gaza with the word genocide. And it was strange reading name after name after name after name, and I did this on purpose. Because the real question right now is, why is this genocide being denied? And as a man of faith, I'm really concerned when it's the church that denies the genocide. We lived in a time when we've seen a genocide normalized, and now we're seeing, witnessing the denial of our genocide, which is really an attack on our humanity as Palestinians. And that's why I'm fighting, to continue to remind the world that we wanted to make sure that never again is truly never again. And now, sadly, it has become yet again. And we continue to ask, how many more need to be killed before the world recognizes this as a genocide? You know, we were sharing usually the numbers we receive from Gaza, knowing too well that the numbers are much higher than that. There are still those who are under the rubble, but there are those who were killed simply for lack of access to medical care. The Lancet, which is one of the world's leading medical journals, recently wrote an article estimating the death toll to be more than 180,000. 180,000. 2 million displaced. And we continue to ask, how many more need to be killed before the world recognizes this? And sadly, today we live in the final stages. And that's the scary part, in that it seems that now the Zionist leaders feel they have an opportunity to literally empty Gaza. The message of what we're saying right now is clear: leave or be killed. About a week ago or 10 days, it was the Israelis who shared the image of the demolition of the only hospital for cancer patients in Gaza. There was no combat. This wasn't fighting and it was destroyed by mistake. It wasn't even a missile. Because, you know, usually they say we hit where the rockets come from. No, they planted bombs and demolished it. Sending a clear message to the people of Gaza: not even cancer patients will survive. This is, by the way, the definition of ethnic cleansing. Creating a criteria or living conditions so that no one can live and they will, quote unquote, choose to leave. No one wants to leave. At the same time, the seeds of ethnic cleansing are being planted in the West Bank. We feel ashamed, honestly. I come from Bethlehem. I feel ashamed talking about what's happening in the West Bank, because it's nothing in comparison to what's happening in Gaza. Yet it's still serious. Whether it's the annexation, whether it's the destruction of homes in Jenin refugee camps. Do you know that more than 40,000 Palestinians were displaced already in Jenin? 40,000. Bethlehem alone, where I come from, is besieged with close to 90 checkpoints, blockades, and gates. 90. So what's happening in the West Bank itself is really horrifying. How did we get here? How did we allow this? Or what allowed this to happen to the extent that a genocide is being watched live and the world is not moving? The streets are. Many people of faith are. But what enabled this genocide? And sadly, part of the reason I wrote this book is the fact that Christian theology, and mainly Western Christian theology, shamefully and tragically played a role in enabling this genocide. And I needed to confront this. I needed to confront this as a Christian, as a follower of Christ, that this is not the way of Jesus. But of course, theology, and I'll talk about it in a bit, is not to be viewed in isolation. Theology is part and parcel of a wider matrix that I talk about, namely coloniality, racism, and as I said, theology. These three elements, coloniality, racism, and theology, are what enabled this genocide. When I talk about coloniality, it's really important to remember that the United States continues to view Israel as an ally. I mean, they're not even trying. Israel is our ally in the Middle East. When I talk about coloniality, I think of a definition by the World Communion of Reformed Churches. I love this. It says, empire or coloniality is the coming together of economic, cultural, political, and military power that constitutes a system of domination led by powerful nations to protect and defend their own interests. This is what it's about. America wants to defend its own interest in the Middle East. To put it simply, Israel makes America richer and stronger. And it's very telling that Biden said if Israel did not exist, we would have to create it to protect our interest in the Middle East. At least he was honest. This is not about fairness or justice or morality or what's right or wrong. There is an empire that wants to dominate, to expand, and Israel serves that purpose. So we need to see this, and not as if blame the Bible as if it's the main issue here. But the domination and exploitation of others is based also on racism. The belief that some people groups have less dignity and worth than others, to put it simply. And we need to continue to confront racism and to challenge this idea that somehow we moved beyond it. So let me explain how it works. To boast simply that you will, and I quote, own someone else's land and territory. Own. These were the words of Trump. We will own Gaza, he said. And then, of course, make it the Riviera of the Middle East by ethnically cleansing 2 million people. You only declare so if you clearly view yourself as superior and the others as inferiors and less human. How else would you explain such a call? We will own Gaza. And to me, it was interesting to look around what the response was to this statement, especially in the political sphere. There was a lot of discussion about the practicality of the idea. Some wondered, do we really want to send troops to Gaza? I mean, with the idea that he's suggesting the displacement of 2 million people. The discussion was about the practicality, or the idea that what was suggested is ethnic cleansing, which is a crime. This underlines the severity of the moment we live in, where you have a powerful leader openly boast about committing a crime, and then the discussion is about the practicality of it. And again, all of this just shows how, in their mind, Palestinians are less humans. It's okay to simply displace 2 million people. And then if you need an ideology or religion that turns coloniality and racism into good and righteous acts, then theology and religion come to service. You know, empires always need a theology. Empires need a religion. In a religion that tells you that what you're committing and acting is actually a righteous deed, and that you're sent from God to do these righteous deeds. So to dominate, you must dehumanize. And to dehumanize, you need a discourse in our curse that turns the indigenous into terrorists. That's the discourse. And acts of colonialism into fighting evil and tyranny, maybe promoting democracy and freedom, law and order, and self-defense. This is how it happens. You shift the discourse. And you always need those who whisper in the ears of Caesar that he is sent from God, and what he's doing is not just right, but will actually make us all great again. That's how, as I said, empires always need religion. They need a discourse that declares that you are entitled, chosen, destined, and superior. And as such, any act, any atrocities you commit become actually good deeds done in the name of God. This is what Christian Zionism is about. This is, by the way, exactly what the theology of apartheid was about. And if you want another proof, just go and read the Israeli nation-state law, a textbook for supremacy in the name of religion. In the case of Palestine, sadly, colonialism and theology have been going hand in hand for a while. And so settler colonialism and the ethnic cleansing of more than 800,000 Palestinians in the Nakba was described as, and I quote, Jews returning to their land, which renders the Palestinians, including the Palestinian Christian indigenous people of the land who kept the heritage, the tradition, even the Christian presence, now we are rendered as aliens and invaders. Someone else is now returning to their land. This is the power of the theological discourse. And so a Jew born in Brooklyn can move to Palestine, displace Palestinians, take our home, take our land, get more rights than all of us in Palestine, and it's described as fulfillment of prophecy or act of God. Again, this is the power of theological discourse as we've seen it in Palestine. And unfortunately, in this war, this theological support, this use of religion to justify atrocities went to a different level. And this was one of the main reasons why I wrote this book, is the whole chapter on the use of theology to justify a genocide. That chapter was painful to write. It could have been a whole book, believe me, because I had to be selective. Can you imagine how hard it was for us in Palestine, especially as a Palestinian Christian community, to listen to these things said about our people, calling for the destruction of Gaza, calling for revenge, even fascinating about the second coming of Christ and so on, all in the name of the God of the Bible. And what was shocking to us is the fact that it did not come from the typical suspect, usually a pastor in Arkansas or somewhere in the south. It was congressmen and women. And in one of the most telling moments, I think, in this war, at least to me, trying to analyze this, was during the Congress hearings about the university encampments. And they were investigating the university president. A congressman by the name of Allen was asking and talking, the Columbia University president. And he asked her if she knows Genesis 12:3. I don't know how many of you know that verse. I will bless those who bless you and curse those. God is talking to Abraham. And then he followed that verse by asking her, do you want Columbia University to be cursed by the God of the Bible? I kid you not, this is in the Congress. Intimidation and fear in the name of God. A friend of mine called it spiritual terrorism. And by the way, sorry Rashida, imagine if Rashida quoted the Quran to intimidate and to say Allah will curse you if you go against Palestine. Imagine the coverage on Fox News that day. But again, to show the hypocrisy, because it's all about separating church and state in this country, with the exception of Palestine. You impose your religious beliefs on millions of Palestinians and Arabs. And that includes, by the way, Middle Eastern Christians who don't believe any of that. And all of a sudden, the international law does not matter. Those who live in the land does not matter. We have this biblical right, as another hearing said, for who was supposed to be the ambassador in the UN, when she said, yes, I believe Israel has biblical rights to even take and annex the West Bank. I mean, are you listening to yourself? I keep asking. What you're telling the world and telling Palestinians. There was another moment, this time behind closed doors, but it was recorded. Another congressman He was a pastor, then turned into a congressman, Waltberg, who called so that we get it over with quickly, the same way we did with Hiroshima and Nagasaki. He added America shouldn't be spending a single dime on Gaza, on humanitarian aid. This is a pastor calling for a nuclear attack on Gaza. I mean, to me, what Jesus is he talking about? What Jesus is he following? And by the way, let me tell you something about we in Palestine. Christianity and nonviolence go hand in hand. They're one package. You can't be Christian and believe in violence. And for us to use this obsession in violence with many Christian leaders here shocks us. I mean, where do you get this from? To the extent that he quotes Nagasaki and Hiroshima as good examples. Remember when we killed 200,000 people in Japan? That worked. Let's do it again. I mean, what mentality is this? And to me, what's really hard to believe, that this is coming from followers of Jesus. And then the list goes on and on. Believe me, I could spend the next hour just giving you one example after example. There were those who said this is a just war, using the so-called just war theory, which makes the killing of 17,000 children the justice of God. Imagine, what kind of God is this? And then there were those who attacked and said this is all because of anti-Semitism. Some actually said that Palestinians possess the spirit of Amalek. You know that. By the way, Netanyahu said this. But many pastors said this. The spirit in Amalek in the Bible, you deserve to be utterly destroyed. Annihilation, completely. And they defined possessing the spirit of Amalek. It is anyone who refuses to believe and accept the sole inheritance of Israel to the land. So if you don't accept the sole inheritance of Israel to the land, you must be utterly destroyed. And they call us the terrorists. And then they call us for anti-Semitism. Always, instrumentalizing and weaponizing anti-Semitism to silence criticism, which is really shameful. There was a long open ad in a prominent Christian website magazine that was not pleased with the idea that we wrap Jesus in a kufiya in our church, saying that this is anti-Semitic because the kufiya as the national symbol of Palestine is anti-Semitic. I mean, imagine trying to combat or to address one form of racism by promoting vile hatred toward an entire people, by calling the kufiya a symbol of anti-Semitism. And what's really ironic, by the way, about the Jesus in a kufiya in our church was built in the 19th century by Germans. Any of you visited the church? I don't know. But if you visit the church, there's beautiful stained glass windows. And I kid you not, with a blonde Jesus with colored eyes. So a German Jesus is okay. A Palestinian Jesus apparently is not okay. They even tried to rid us of making Jesus or seeing in Jesus one of our own in our pain and suffering, as in solidarity with us, walking with us. And then to think that it's actually a Western theologian or pastor trying to talk to us Palestinians about anti-Semitism. I mean, the audacity you have. I mean, you have no shame, not knowing, did we kill and massacre 6 million Jews in Europe? Was it us? Was it the Palestinians? I mean, are you not aware of even of history, basic historical facts, that when Jews were escaping Christian persecution, they would go to Arab and Muslim countries? I mean, honestly, and now you have the audacity to lecture us on anti-Semitism, really? Just because we want to stay and exist in the land of our mothers and fathers? And again, it's this idea that the Western world sits on the top of the moral hierarchy, telling the world what's right and what's wrong. And that's why many of you know me from the sermon. I said it and I mean it. I will never ever let a European or American lecture us on human rights again, because it's full of hypocrisy. But in this war, we've also encountered a different way of enabling this genocide. which came, believe it or not, from the mainline progressive liberal churches. And they shocked us the most because we thought they were our friends. We invested years of building relationships, hosting them. They understand the reality. And when October 7th happened, they made statement after statement after statement that ignored the context, condemned one side, and then with the response of Israel, the vengeance campaign, the genocide they committed, these churches were silent and missing, only calling for shy ceasefire calls. And you look at the statements, they have more or less, most of them have the same pattern. They condemn the Palestinians. They describe what happened in October 7th with the worst language. They say it's against the international law. We must reject it. When it comes to what Israel is doing, at best they lament the suffering of Palestinians. Believe me, you read some statements and you conclude maybe there was a hurricane or an earthquake and Palestinians died. They don't condemn, they don't name things by name, and somehow no calls for accountability. And you wonder, really? Is this really better than the other positions, even if you made calls for a ceasefire? And then there were many, and I hope now, I know some of my friends are not always pleased when I say this, but many made very genuine calls for peace, and I believe them. But these calls continued to lack the, not just the urgency, but the tools. And that's why today, and I say this, and I mean it, can you really claim to be in solidarity with the Palestinians if you still insist that there is no genocide? Or if you hesitate to use the so-called G word? Can you claim to be in solidarity with us? In the same way, apartheid was denied. You mentioned what happened in the Congress. I was among those who tried to push the global church to recognize Israel's action as apartheid. We wrote a whole report, sent it to churches, traveled to the World Council of Churches, said, read the reports. It's not us, Palestinians. I mean, we've said it many years ago. No one believed us, of course. But when the Israeli B'Tselem says it, maybe the world will listen. And by the way, the B'Tselem report, and we applaud them, and then there is Human Rights Watch and Nancy. B'Tselem report, the title of the report, Apartheid, a system of Jewish supremacy from the river to the sea. Did you not? There it is, apartheid. Alison, good to see you. What shocks me is that people here are more concerned about chants in the streets more than they cannot use the word apartheid. Choosing Palestinian-Israeli conflict. Imagine if in the 80s we talked about the black and white conflict in South Africa and prayed for reconciliation. Imagine telling the black church there or black people, let's not talk about apartheid. It's not helpful. It will burn bridges. Let's pray for the white and the black, that they will learn how to live together. This is what we're seeing from the church. A church that continues to refuse to call things by name. That's why I repeat my question. Can you really be in solidarity with the Palestinians while continuing to choose not to call things by name? And friends, let me tell you why it's important to call things by name. Because I've had this discussion again with many church leaders. They say, why do you insist on terminology? Terminology does not matter. You know, it's the same people again who lectured us on the importance of definitions and criteria. But anyways, They say terminology does not matter. Let's use the description. And I say, no, it matters. Because if we're talking about a conflict, then the solution is mediation. But if we're talking about apartheid, then what needs to happen is sanctions, is boycott, and not just mediation. That's why terminologies matter. Using the right description matters, because we need to have the right ask. And the right ask is precisely this, that we hold those who commit war crimes accountable. Thank you. And today more than ever, this voice of neutrality, we need to go beyond it. You know, one of the things I continue to talk about is the neutral church. The church that talks about peacemaking as an act of neutrality. You know what I mean? Positioning ourselves in the middle and choosing not to take sides. To come across as, you know, holier than thou. We don't take sides, we pray for both sides equally. Again, imagine, this is when facing oppression, that's your position. This kind of neutrality continues to enable the oppressor. And so today, more than ever, we're asking for true solidarity, knowing too well that this solidarity could be costly. In fact, I truly believe now that solidarity, by definition, is costly. There were times, maybe, when you could have avoided paying the cost. But right now, more than ever, you can no longer support Palestine without facing consequences. And to me, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe we need to know where people stand. And we need to realize that this is much, much more than Palestine. Again, this is about our collective humanity. When we do so to the Palestinians, we do it to all. Believe me. If we agree to live in a world in which there are no human rights, no international law. And I know that, you know, some people pay the price. Reverend, I know this. And I can only think of the verse because I know others who sold their souls, believe me. Reverends, pastors, who sold their souls for the sake of power and position. And I can only think of Jesus' words, what profits a man if he wins the whole world and loses their soul. This is the kind of time we live in. There is so much at stake. And I'm glad that, you know, what's happening here was mentioned, because clearly they chose to pick on those who support Palestine, whether it's Mahmoud or Rasmiya, I think the Turkish student, who was kidnapped. I mean, it's shocking to me that this is happening here. Silence means there's others who will be next. You know, I've been thinking of the words of the German pastor who said, first they came for the socialist and I said nothing because I was not one. Then they came for the communist, I said nothing because I was not them. Then they came for the Jew, and then they came for me, and there was no one left to defend me. This is the kind of moment I truly believe we live in. I would like to briefly then talk about the concept of Christ in the rubble that many of you seen. And I'm sure most of you have seen this picture done all over the world. And thank you, May, for reading from the sermon I gave the day after, 2 days after the church in St. Porphyrios was hit. 18 people were killed, including 9 precious children. The question I was simply wrestling with is where was God? Why did he not stop this? Does he care? Does he even listen? It was hard to talk to people, especially in our church. A lovely woman lost her sister in that attack. She was killed in the bombing. So what do I preach? What do I say? And as I said, that's when I thought, you know, God is the victim of violence. Jesus was the victim of violence. Jesus himself cried, my God, why have you forsaken me? So I said, God is in the rubble in Gaza. And that became the idea behind creating this manger, because later Christmas came. You mentioned the visit, May. It was immediately after that visit. I came back on a Saturday, met with our church members and said, I have this idea. And I'm always grateful that, you know, that our church embraced this idea, you know, this You need crazy church to embrace the idea of a crazy pastor to bring Rubble to the middle of the church. When we created it, believe me, we were all in tears. It was so moving. As families coming together with children, because it was a teaching moment for our children that we should feel with others. And next Sunday in church, the first Sunday of Advent, I said, this is the true meaning of Christmas. The solidarity of God with the oppressed and the marginalized. Jesus was born among the occupied as a sign of solidarity with those who suffer. In his birth, Jesus survived a massacre. The Holy Family became refugees out of all places in Egypt. And to me, the Christmas story was truly a Palestinian story in that we could identify with what's happening, and we feel Jesus identifying with us in our pain. So I said if Jesus were to be born today, he would be born under the rubble in Gaza as a sign of God's solidarity with the marginalized and the oppressed. But I also added something important. In a time when the world was justifying and rationalizing the killing of our children, I insisted that we see the image of Jesus in every child pulled from under the rubble. Jesus said, whatever you have done to the least of me, you have done to me. The world could say whatever they want about our children. We know how God views them. And to us, that was a source of comfort. And this is what I was trying to do, bring comfort to people who were wounded and broken. I shared the picture, and to say it was viral is an understatement. It was overwhelming. I could still not fathom the what is in this picture that brought this much attention from the Western media. In fact, when they would come to me in scores of media, I would say, why are you here? Go to Gaza. The story is the genocide in Gaza, not a baby wrapped in a kufiya in the church in Bethlehem. But I realized that I had a platform, and that I have the responsibility to use the platform in a responsible way and send the message. And so we preached, I preached on Christmas, the day before Christmas, the sermon Christ in the Rubble, in a big service online. Churches for Middle East Peace was one of the co-organizers. I never anticipated millions to watch it. And I always say, had I said, let's pray for peace, nobody would have heard about it. This is the importance of people of faith speaking with courage and not soft, neutral language. I insisted, and I called out those who were accountable and who are complicit in this genocide. I insisted that Gaza is the moral compass of our world. I wanted people to look in the mirror and ask, where were you when Gaza was going through a genocide? In the same way I ask, what did we do as people of faith today to make sure that never again is truly never again? You know, people ask me this question, still ask me this question all the time. Why would God allow this? Where is God in the midst of this? And the way I answer it is that this is the wrong question. The real question should not be where was God. The real question is where are the people of goodwill and people of faith? Why are we silent? What did we do? And to me as a pastor, I must insist, where was the church during all of this? What did we do or say so that never again truly becomes never again? This is what we need to ask ourselves. I would like to conclude by reading from the final pages of the book, Christ in the Rubble. You know, when you write a book, everyone wants you to talk about hope. And that's difficult. In fact, I really struggle to preach about hope these days. I talk more about survival. How can we survive? I hope we survive. I hope we survive this assault, whether in the West Bank or in Gaza. Because it's truly hard to talk about hope when you look at the loss, the millions who lost their lives. When you look at the settler attacks, even when you think of what happened to the co-director of the documentary No Other Land. He was assaulted, then arrested from the ambulance. So how can we talk about hope? And to me, how can we talk about hope when the person who led the Gaza genocide and one of the architects of an apartheid reality is received and welcomed in Congress as a hero. Yes, we all want a ceasefire. I want more than that. I want justice and accountability. Those who commit war crime must be held accountable. How can we hope when Arab leaders watch and do nothing to stop the bloodshed? How can we hope when ideologies of supremacy and exclusion still dominate our world? How can we hope when many churches side with the empire, repeat its rhetoric, and play its tune, all while claiming they are on the side of peace? How can we hope when the Bible continues to be weaponized against the Palestinian people? And again, how can we hope when the Caesars of today boast about owning someone else's land, displace millions, turning the tragedy of millions into an opportunity to grow in wealth and power, even sharing a video about the plan? I wonder if you've seen the video. With a golden Nebuchadnezzar type, golden statue of himself. All while the church keeps silence, even worse, whispering in his ears, "You are sent by God." So how can we hope? How can we hope in the midst of this culture of fear, intimidation, and bullying that we live in? So it is a struggle. But you see, when we stop hoping, we declare that we give in to tyranny and oppression. And we allow the oppressors of the empire not only to shape our reality, but to shape our future. When we stop believing and hoping, we accept that injustice is the norm, and I refuse to accept this. Hope in this sense becomes a form of resilience, resistance. It is a struggle. It is painful. It is illogical. It even feels wrong. But we cannot surrender to the alternative. This is why in Palestine now we talk a lot about sumud. Sumud, which is the Arabic word for steadfastness. It is commonly used to talk about the Palestinian steadfastness in the face of the assault of colonialism. It compensates Palestinian not just steadfastness, but also resilience. I like to call it also our stubbornness. We don't give up. We don't give in to just injustice. It's about refusing to forget the past. It's about rootedness in the land, this rootedness that can be shaken but never uprooted. Sumud is the Palestinian refugee holding to their right of return. But it's also beyond that. It's about preserving memory, such as when a descendant or a Nakba survivor wears the Palestinian thobe, the traditional dress, not only of that, the Palestinian one, but many times they wear the thobe of the village, and they still hold to the name of the village they came from. This is the Palestinian sumud. Yes, the path forward seems to be marked with more suffering and pain. But until then, we will continue to pray, to believe, and to keep the faith. That's why I kept repeating throughout this war. They can take everything from us. They cannot take faith from within us. They can get to anywhere, but they cannot get to inside of us. Faith is the only thing they cannot touch. Faith is the only thing we cannot lose in this war. And it is with this faith that we survive, and it is in this faith that we continue persevering. This is our sumud. Sumud then becomes a commitment, defiance and resolve. Commitment to continue to work for justice, to advocate for life with dignity, and to choose to hope that we will recover from this atrocity. Believe me, we will recover. Yes, the loss is enormous. The destruction is massive. The pain is profound and the wounds are deep to the extent that recovery seems like an illusion. It feels like being in the bottom of a deep and dark pit. It feels like the tomb of Jesus on Saturday. Death, darkness, and silence. But we choose to hope. And we choose to believe, to survive, to exist, and to insist that God is good. So we will recover. rooted in resilience, and we will demand justice for our people, we will recover. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I would love it. I would love it if we have 2 more people to join us. I know I have 1 more person, and I'm happy to introduce you to her, the Honorable Cori Bush. Yes. And the Honorable Rashida Tlaib. Fabulous. Thank you, thank you. So now we have the opportunity to have a bit of a conversation here. And I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful. And so I wanted first to give you, we had the opportunity at Churches for Middle East Peace. We had an advocacy summit a few weeks ago. And the Honorable Cori Bush was one of our keynote speakers. And we are so grateful. She brought forward the ceasefire resolution at the House, which was so incredibly courageous. And so I'd love to give you the opportunity to respond, both you and Rashida, please.
So first of all, let me just start by saying what an honor it is to, first of all, to have been asked. So thank you to Churches for Middle East Peace for the invite to be able to come and to be with you for your book signing, Reverend, as well as to meet you and to be able to spend this time with all of our friends who are here, the folks who do the work on the ground, to be able to be at our spot, Busboys and Poets, whatever part of town it is, but we do love Southeast. And to be here with my sister, Rashida Tlaib. Thank you all so much. Let me just say, when you preached that sermon, I couldn't believe it because I needed it, but I couldn't find it coming from where it came from. I didn't even know to look for it. And it was on the internet. And it spoke to me in a way, first of all, the imagery, but it spoke to me because it reminded me, because for such a long time, I had been wondering, and I know my sister Rashida, we were trying to figure out, where is our team? Like, who are our folks? Not just in the house, but me being a Christian and me being a pastor myself, and me just wondering, seeing this divide in the church and just wondering, where are my folks and why aren't we speaking out enough? And then to hear this sermon and to see the baby Jesus in a keffiyeh, in the rubble, when we were being villainized for wearing our keffiyehs, it brought me back to this prayer that I remember being taught as a child. I grew up Baptist. I'm non-denominational Christian now, but this prayer still speaks to me. And it reminded me, it took me, it just brought me to the place where you were at that moment. And I know many of you probably know it. Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. Where there is darkness, light. Where there is sadness, joy. Oh, divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born into eternal life. And in that, to me, what you said genocide, you said annihilation, you said all of the things, but you also said again, and you said it here, hope. And if the church can't stand up for the people, if the church can't stand up for all of the people, because what I just read here didn't give a specific denomination, a color, a religion, an economic status, or a border. Humanity. And so I just want to say thank you for crossing the pond with a word that the United States needed, because the United States must be held accountable for every single thing, every dollar, every dime, every bomb, every person that has lost their loved one, lost a life, because this country has made the decision to stand with genocide, to participate in genocide, to participate in ethnic cleansing, to participate in displacement, to participate in the killing of babies and families, to participate in ending family lines, to participate in taking money from this country, the country that it cannot take care of already, to go and harm others. You bring hope, and I cannot wait to read your book. And when we wonder what, and I know we've heard this before during this time, when we wonder how did this thing happen years ago or decades ago or hundreds of years ago, how did this thing happen? Because there were good people. I remember thinking, as someone who is the descendant of enslaved Africans in this country on both sides of my family, I remember wondering, how were there good people who let my family be enslaved in this country? How did that happen? It's because good people were silent. So how good are you if you're silent, if you're complicit, if you cannot stand up for another person, even if it means you put yourself on the line? How good are you? And so it happens because people let it happen. And you are not one of those people. Not only are you not one of those people, you are teaching us how to lead and to stand in this moment, not only as people of God, but just as humanity. For those that may not be Christian, you are still showing each and every one of us how we should stand at this moment. So I just want to say thank you.
Maybe so.
So thank you so much to Reverend Munther. I can't express to you, like, I don't usually ask them. I usually do my events and I go and I said, no, I want to actually stay and listen. I was not planning.
She said, can I stay?
And I wanted to hear, and then I found out you're my really good friend Jehan's cousin. I had no idea. And so, yeah, she's Jehan's cousin. Yeah, I had no idea. But one of the things that, I'll share in this moment as you were speaking, I could have replaced Christianity with Islam. I could have replaced it because so many Muslim countries and leaders are been silent and standing up, and you can hear it in the children's desire and screaming, where is the Arab world, where is the Muslim world, and speaking up. So a lot of what you were saying, and you know this, you hear it, the sense of where is that humanity, where is the outcry for many people of my own faith. And it is incredible to watch, from the Abraham Accords to this, gaslighting to say this is the pathway to truly recognizing, again, the humanity of Palestinians. And again, many of them been used as instruments to show this is the pathway with no Palestinians at the table ever, in making sure that they have self-determination and understanding what they would want to see in their communities. But I'm glad you talked about hope, because I'm looking for it still. So I'm really looking for it in a sense of understanding that my American neighbors across the country of different backgrounds and faith are standing with us. That gives me hope. But I think you're right, not only about Samud, but also about, like I loved how you said, and I felt like you were talking to me, like, but they wore their Eid clothes, Rashida. They celebrated, even under the rubble of their masjid. They celebrated even though their home was rubble. They wore their clothes, and mashallah, they looked so beautiful. They were like so happy, and so they wanted us to see it, absolutely. And so even as you were speaking, that resonated with me, because I'm like, you're right. Look at them. Even among all of it, we're not there, and look at them. Look at them standing unapologetically proud Palestinians, saying, you know, they're not going anywhere. You know, it is amazing to kind of, again, be in this room with you, Reverend. I don't know if you realize how much of a inspiration you are as a Christian brother to me as a Muslimah here. You give me a tremendous amount of hope. Your mere existence in speaking this truth, it takes a lot of courage. I say that because I see so much, like fear among my colleagues, the paralyzation constantly. And up here, you're so liberated. No, I love it, and alhamdulillah, because the faith. Yes, faith. But it is important for me to see this moments of just watching, again, this true liberation of like, this is what we do it, and you did it beautifully through your faith. So thank you for being here. It's been incredible being in this space with you.
Thank you. And to both of you, I think freedom is a matter of the self, the soul, more than anything. I think those who kill are the ones who are enslaved. And it's really empowered that we continue to accompany one another in this struggle. One of the, who was it in the beginning? I think Andy said that there is maybe a silver lining in all of this, something to see. One of the things that I really, sources of hope to me, was to see the number of Christian, Jews, and Muslims coming together to organize, to say we are united in this. It's really encouraging. Last year I was, I'll never forget that meeting. Invited to speak in a church in Pittsburgh, and then they took me to meet with some of their friends who were advocating for Palestine in Pittsburgh. We met Summer Lee then. But we met at the basement of a mosque, and there were Jews, Jewish rabbis, Jewish leaders, and pastors at the basement of a mosque talking about justice for Palestine. It's good to see this coming together. And it's also, to me, very important to join struggles, because we are in this boat together. One of the things I've been trying to do, whether through the Institute now, I now lead Bethlehem Institute for Peace and Justice, or before that, is to connect Palestinian Christian theologians with African American theologians. And so to me it was important that Willie Jennings, an African American theologian who wrote the foreword to the book, because I truly believe there is a joint struggle. Maybe if I could have another foreword, it would have been from a South African leaders. Believe me, the ideology is the same. Unfortunately, the racism is the same. But then the belief in the dignity of life, and that we are called as people of faith to defend the sanctity of humanity and the dignity of people and to fight for justice, is common. And that's what we should always bring together. So I love this idea of walking shoulder to shoulder, empowering one another. And one final word, I'm not sure you know this. We all love you in Palestine, Rashida. You're very funny. So thank you. Thank you for giving us a sense of empowerment. You and many wonderful American Palestinian women who are speaking. Yesterday I met Noura Ariqat, what an amazing leader. So you make us proud, and you make us want to continue the fight, knowing that we're not alone there in Palestine. So thank you for everything you're doing as well.
Thank you. One of my personal mentors and leaders was Dr. Maadi Abdul Hadi, who was the founder of PASIA, the academic think tank in Jerusalem. And he always said, if truth is not spoken, truth will be lost. And I'm grateful for the truths spoken here tonight, for the truths each of you have spoken in your own spaces. But sometimes from the places where we're sitting, be it, the occupied West Bank or occupied Gaza or the United States, it can look differently. And I'm curious, when you hear about, in terms of the current realities right now and the work that needs to be done, what is the fundamental, if there's one message you want people here to take, or one action you want people to take, what would that be? From the place where you're sitting. I'd like each of you to answer it, if you would.
I think we all have a responsibility not to fail the people of Gaza and the children of Gaza. We owe it to them. They are the two heroes here. Their courage is the courage that we should all look after. When people say thank you, I say we should thank them. And that's why we cannot fail them. And to do so, I think it's incredibly important right now that we are clear about what we're asking. So we need to be clear to uphold, as I said, this is a critical moment. If this passes, then this means we go back to the days of might is always right. Khalas. So we need to speak with more courage. When people ask me what should we do, I say, there will be a cost. And as a faith leader, I continue to insist, prayer without action means nothing. And if we're not willing to openly say, we demand sanctions, weapon embargo, as faith leaders, we demand sanctions, weapon embargo, boycott, until Israel abides with the international law so that we can share the land. I don't think, as I said, you can be in solidarity with the Palestinians. So right now, more than ever, we need very specific asks. Not just we pray for you, we feel with you, we will amplify your voices. No, but we will demand accountability from our elected leaders. Every time I speak in the States, I remind people, and I know they hate to hear this genocide would not have been possible if it was not for your tax money and your politicians. Not all of them. Many of them. Hold them accountable. Hold them accountable. Speak, advocate, demonstrate non-violently, organize sit-ins so that we make a difference and so that we make this movement. And clearly this movement is being targeted now. Some people didn't think I would be allowed to enter. I shouldn't say this. That should not intimidate us. We should not stop. There are people paying a much, much higher price for all of us, because again, it's about our collective humanity. So let's organize, connect movements, and be more effective.
So let me ask, how many people in here are a part of either you have your own organization or you are a part of an organization that is doing work that impacts this work? Raise your hand. Okay. And so what that means is that there is a lot of work happening, but there are a lot more people who are not connected to each and every person that just raised their hand in this room. And we know how difficult it is to get people to see outside of their bubble of their issues. We get it. But when we talk about what is that call to action, it's us. It's us. Because as much as we understand, and as a Christian woman and as other people of faith, whatever your faith belief is or isn't, I believe that my God is not going to come down here and do the work. He gave it to me. And he gave it to this person and that person and him and everybody else. He gave it to us. He gave us feet to move. He gave us hands to do. He gave us hearts to feel. He gave us minds to think. Or whatever our ability or is or isn't. He gave that to us. And so it moves because we move it. It's spoken because we speak it. It happens because we made it happen. And so when we don't, it does not happen. And so all of the people in this room, each and every one of us, we have a network, we have a group, we have some type of organizing, we can convene. And so how do we bring that all together? Maybe we can get out of some of the silos and work together a little bit more. Maybe we can make sure that the people sitting at the table that we don't know, that we get to know before we walk out of here. Maybe we can push past DC and push past some of the local areas, the DMV, and let's spread across the country and let's do this work in that way. And also, people care, and you alluded to this, people care more about the words than they care about the impact, so they get mad at you for saying genocide, but they don't get mad about, and you spoke to this on your Twitter, on whatever it's called, recently. You care about the fact that people are dying, that whole generations of people are dying. You care more about the word. You care about how we say it. You care about how it made you feel, but you don't care about the actual murder of people. So that is it. We need to fight back in those ways. And I understand, we know what Donald Trump is trying to do. He wants to come against police. He wants to, squash, he wants to crush dissent. But the thing is this. It's the people who actually have the power. It's the people who have the power. So if enough of the people rise up and stay up, then they can't defeat us. So I am saying that call to action is us. So however hard of a fighter that you are, can you fight even harder than that? However tough you are, can you be tougher than that? How much ever you've lost to this work, can you afford to lose more to save somebody's life? That is the question. And if you can answer yes to that, and as somebody who lost a job that was $174,000 a year and now I don't have work, I can say yes to that. So I'm asking, who in this room can say, I can push in harder, I can work harder, I can fight harder, I can be tougher, I can lose if I need to lose? If that's you, stand up or wave your hand if we're not able to send her. All right. So that's your call to action. So figure out tomorrow, sleep on it tonight, and then tomorrow wake up with a new vision about how we're getting ready to take this country back.
So I think to piggyback on both what the Reverend and my sister Corey said, one of the things happened today is, I told people about the joint resolution of disapproval and where are Michigan senators on this issue. And in the same chat, person's like, well, can't you just go over there and talk to them? And I said, they'll listen to you more than me. What I feel like is people are giving up in moving some of these folks in the institution. And I know it's hard, and sometimes it's incredibly painful, the shit that comes out of their mouth. I mean, really, just racist stuff. Well, they shouldn't raise their children to be this, or just unbelievably painful things that come out of some of my colleagues' mouths. But I don't want you to give up. I still remember as a young organizer protesting a member of Congress, and it was years before we were able to move him. And he was one of our best allies before he passed away. And he was a person that wasn't afraid, even at a time was unpopular to say even Palestinian. And so in Palestine. So I just need all of you to please use the power of your position and the power of you as a resident of this country to push your senators, push your members of Congress, make them uncomfortable. It's okay. Make them, I mean both. Make them uncomfortable. I just need that. And again, I'm speaking from a person inside this chamber, and I don't think they're hearing from you all. I know you think that they're not hearing from you all enough. I counted in mid-February 6 to 7 contacts by those that are all, I call them the Kill Them All caucus. Kill them all. That's their goal. Kill them all. Genocide. No, I call them the Kill Them All caucus because that's the policy they signed up for. Call it genocide, of course that's what it is, but it is kill them all policy. Send more, keep going until they're all gone. And so I just ask all of you to please use this moment, because I know it's a big, is it okay to Johanna say babusa? It's a big babusa, sorry to say this, for people to go after. It is though, it is to go after, again, folks to say we have 18, 19, 20 senators that now are not with you all on this particular issue. They're just not with you. So to show them that we're not gonna back down. And again, I just think that's so important. The other thing, and just please know this, I think some people settle in doing letters and doing kind of advocacy without even mentioning the word Palestinian or Palestine. I feel like that is also part of erasure. So you have a lot of my colleagues that want to do letters but never mention the word Palestine or Palestinians. You could be for international law, but speak it, say it, lean into it. I feel like that's part of the erasure that's happening in our country. So you guys got to help agitate. You know, Dr. King needed Martin Luther King, Dr. King needed Malcolm X needed Dr. King. Last thing, and I've said this so many times, we didn't get transformative change in our country like the Civil Rights Act because people in Congress woke up one day and said that's a really great idea. We didn't get the right to organize unions because somebody in the White House woke up and said, you know, that's a really good idea. We can save lives in the workplace for that. We can give people human dignity. That's not how it happened. It's when we demanded it. We withheld our labor, we protested, we marched, we boycott, we did everything. And it's not perfect, but that's what we had to do. People died. People were arrested. They lost their jobs. Communities were just destroyed. I watched what happened in my own city in the rebellion of fighting against police brutality and so much more. And again, it only happened because folks in the streets out-organized them, out-organized the hate, pushed back. And again, all of that to say is that you can do this. And you know, I'm a little gritty. I'm a little gritty around you had to meet my Siti Shama. She's from Beit Hanina. And we're a little like rough around the edges. I get that strength because I still remember her walking in a room, never went to school. She used to walk in the room and never take no for an answer. I mean, this woman came from literally violence, being othered, just like ripped from her community because of poverty, going to Nicaragua. From Nicaragua, she comes to the United States. She walks in the room, she goes and sits with where the men are sitting because she knows that's where they're making decisions. She will not budge, but that's who I was a little girl following. And I keep thinking to myself, whatever inspires you to take no for an answer and to continue to motivate you, again, to be able to show there is no ironclad support for genocide in our country. It's not happening. It's not there. They can pretend all they want. Institution might be there, but the people of this country are done. They're done. They're so incredibly anti-war and anti-genocide. I hear it all the time. How much more money can we send for more bombs, more weapons, when right here at home we're not taking care of our neighbors? So again, thank you so much. And again, continue to push back against all of the oppression.
I would like to add another thing. And obviously I speak as a non-American, but I travel in America a lot. And I come from, like me, from the evangelical camp. And I want to
Not that
encourage
kind
you-
of evangelical.
I want to encourage you on the importance and power of conversations. Reach out. I've seen so many people who you will consider on the right, conservative, who are now strong pro-Palestinian advocates even within their camp. Believe me, I see people changing. So don't think for a moment that there are those we shouldn't speak to or try to. And believe me, you know, I talk to evangelicals all the time and the conservatives, and some of them are some of the nicest people. They don't know. So we need to continue share, speak about Palestine with courage, with conviction, without compromising, and reach out. The power of conversation and the power of love in our message, I believe, can transform. So don't give up, and share and speak and build these conversations. And as I said, I've seen people join the pro-justice movement and pro-Palestine from all camps, believe me. And so I'm grateful for every voice, but don't think that, we shouldn't talk to one another or we shouldn't talk to the... I've seen them change.
Well, thank you, thank you, thank you. We have so much gratitude to you. Andy, I presume that they can get the book here. You must get the book here. Okay, so I encourage you, please, to do that. Thank you so much for your hospitality. So we're going to close, and then you can ask maybe after. I don't know everybody's plans, but I did want to say one of the passages we've been reading through is Psalm 13 that talks about how long, O Lord? How long? How long will this go on? How long, O Lord, how long? And we don't know. We don't know how long. You know, we said more than a year and a half ago how long, but we know however long it goes on, we will continue to work to bring it to an end. So may it be so. May the genocide of Gaza come to an end. May the atrocities in the West Bank be brought to an end. Let's thank our incredible speakers. Let's thank Reverend Dr. Munther Isaac.